All right, we are live. Well, this is another episode of Call Me Mr. Broadstreet. So I've decided to go ahead and have on my friend today, Mr. Gadget Cider. I don't know if you want to say your real name or not. No,
Well, that would be Gaijin cider. It's a long
Gadget
story, but we'll
Cider.
go into that another time.
We will. Well, first of all, to the folks out there, thank you for bearing with me. Just real quick, there's been a bit of a snafu with the editing software that I normally use. I'm going to be switching to another editing software that could mean, that could mean a new theme song. Actually, my friend here, you're the first hearing that. Yeah, new theme song,
Ooh,
new,
nice.
slightly new look. I think, it's going to be, it's going to be, a little bit of an experiment, but the software kept crashing. Hey, Tony, good to see you on the chat there. So we're just kind of chatting a bit today. This is the 100th video. I figured, you know what, since everything is down with the editing software, why not make lemonade out of lemons? Is that the
Now,
expression?
when you get when life gives you lemons, you make a lemon cannon.
Oh, this is
That's
going to
my
be
theory.
fun. This is fun. Well, Andrew and I have known each other for quite a while, even way
Oh,
before
yes.
this, going back to college. Um,
More than
so
25 years now, actually. Yeah.
I think so, man. I think
Mhm.
now if I'm measuring it by the Paul McCartney solo canon, that's going to be around the time of Flaming Pie. No, around the time of Anthology. I think,
It's a few
yeah,
years.
that's a few years. That's just a couple years there. But we're just going to be kind of chatting, riffing, a little bit of an interview. Nothing super hard. I know, you're not quite the Beatles connoisseur, but we're going to get to that, get to some other things, get to some Comic-Con topics as we talked about before.
Oh, yes.
This is this is going to be just this is fun, man. This is just fun to make some light of everything and have a good little kind of Friday chat interview. Like I said, really informal, but
I'm down with that.
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. All right. So, as you know, of course, the name of my channel.
Indeed.
And you can see right
I
behind
can
me as
see.
well. Right over there.
I do see a hint of the fifth Beatle, and he's sitting right there.
Yeah, little. I know. I haven't shaved in a couple days. I wonder what my workplace is going to say about that. But they probably, of course. Now this right here. Now, of course, people know my love for this film. Now, one of the times you came up to visit, I want to say it was the last time I got to show you the film for the first time. You saw it. Now,
prior to the plague, yes.
Yes, and in full defense, I know you had a long trip up from coming from where you were to where I live. Long train ride and everything like that. But you know what? I guess I'll do a first little question. Well, before we get into the film, do you remember the song "No More Lonely Nights"? Because I know we're roughly the same age as Gen X. So did you
roughly the same age? Yes,
roughly
I do remember that getting quite a fair amount of radio play back in the day.
Excellent, man. Well, I mean, what did you think of it?
It was one of those songs that, you have to remember that when I was in school, there were times when people would learn songs on the recorder. And I remember very prominently that when I was in grade school all those years ago, thankfully, my teachers were very, very large Beatles fans, very large Beatles fans. So anytime there was any type of song that was coming out, it would be played for us. We were entirely too young to appreciate such things. But I do remember the aspect where it's like day or night, I'm always there. And when it talks about No More Lonely Nights, it to me was basically saying, look, we've all been knocked around by love, so to speak, but it's like, here it comes. Here's the lonely nights are done. We're with each other. That's kind of, even as a younger man, I was able to appreciate that. And now as a slightly not as young older man, that one is definitely one of my cherished favorites.
Mine as well. That was number one on my countdown. And I'm assuming you did not get to see the film, though. You didn't. I'm assuming you did not get to see the film in theaters.
Unfortunately, no. I was a bit young.
But of course, I got to show that to you. Now, I love the film and all that stuff, but just trying to get your take and everything. What was your take on the film? What was some of your, what you thought the strong points were, the not so strong points? Seeing it as sort of a novice and seeing it as many years after the fact, many years after it came out on DVD, films, everything
I
like that.
do recall that as I was fighting my sleep, of course, and that was not the film's fault. I remember a good chunk of it being, I enjoyed the music, and that was pretty much what drew me in. And I know it was kind of one of those fever dream within a dream type stories, because you have the little Scooby-Doo stuff going on near the end, which you and I did speak about for probably about a good 20 minutes after the movie wrapped up. It's one of those films that I enjoyed being able to see it, but I know that because it was so many years later, I wasn't able to appreciate it in the same way that you did. I would say that it's a film that does tend to, whenever I'm thinking of, do I want to listen to Beatles music or do I want to listen to Paul music, it's a good combination for me, because it shows the strength of Paul being able to carry a good chunk of that film, by and large, without having to use other people to take him through. I somewhat liken it to when Sting had his movie about his album, The Dream of the Blue Turtles, which, as we've discussed before, that was him dreaming about the police breaking up. And that's also another one that I'll have a go-to. I tend to find that when I think of early works, as far as showing the strength of people who were in a group of musicians and then branched out on their own, I definitely think that Give My Regards to Broad Street is one that shows, yes, he's a Beatle, but he's also Paul. And he's one of the few people who can be both. And that movie played on both his strengths as an individual. And I think it also played on the aspect that I know he missed the group, but time marches on, as it does for all of us. And I think it showed that he wasn't willing to concentrate on the past to forsake the future. That's kind of my take on it.
In some ways, yeah. I mean, I know other people, the criticism was more, okay, he's got a lot of, Beatles songs on the soundtrack. So you've got 3 new songs, well, 4 if you count the No More Lonely Nights Playout editions. I mean,
true.
Mini CD right here that's shaped like a record, well, that's done like a record, with a lot of Beatles songs and everything. I think, I've enjoyed the film. I've often enjoyed the film quite a lot, as as you've seen the channel, as you've seen a lot of the memorabilia. And yes, for folks out there, I've got more memorabilia to come. I'm just waiting to get up to speed on this.
He hasn't scratched the surface yet. Surface is nowhere near scratch. Not even 100 episodes.
There's even more items that have come in. Not come in, but like that I've bought, right? But sometimes way back in the day, people would buy stuff for me and things. Now it's more like, okay, a couple eBay finds. I look at this, I go, oh yeah, I want that. I want that. There's one person.
Wait, I have that.
There's always room for a second copy.
One that you don't open. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. You know me well, sir. You know me well. No, it's it's basically. And there's not you, but there's another Andy out there. Andy is part of Two Legs. He has a letter for No More Lonely Nights. So it's like a letter from Columbia Records. Kind of like a promo letter saying, the single is coming out on some nice stationery. Andy, if you're out there and watching or watch this on the rerun, yeah, I'd love to do a trade, man. I'd love to do a trade of some sort. I don't know if that will happen. I mean, I think he said he got it at the Chicago Fest for Beatles fans through one of the vendors, but I'll have to go back and look at that. But I mean, I was glad I was able to show that to you. And just real quick before we get to some of the Comic-Con stuff and everything, I know that's definitely well within your wheelhouse. Any other kind of solo Beatles memories that you might have, as again, a fellow Gen X, as far as either John, George, or Ringo, or just anything along those lines?
Well, as we have, just recently passed a very sad day, one thing that I have noticed, and a lot of people have spoken about, kind of the difficulties of social media. They, talk about too many people are spending time on their phones. They're not interacting enough. They're not, sharing the things that are important to us in this digital age. And one thing that I've noticed across pretty much every social media group that I belong to, is there were a lot of folks that I would talk to, some a lot, some not so much, some barely at all. But a fairly large chunk of them, after that day had passed, were talking about, we still need to give peace a chance, and we still need to, we've still got a long way to go. And I also enjoyed, you'll appreciate that a number of years ago, whenever I would listen to this one song by the band Yes, and it's the song about that has in the background, it's the segment where you hear really quietly in the chorus, "Give peace a chance. All we are saying is give peace a chance." And I remember hearing it in that Yes song, and it's all good people. And when you first listen to it, I mean, it's a great song, but when I first heard that and I started realizing that that's what the words were, there were people that were posting this during the last couple of weeks, and it would not only have Yes, but it would have the Beatles. And I noticed other people talking about, wishing that John was still with us. And, there were, I would say, as far as most of the Beatles items that I remember, are typically folks who would not speak of them in any real negative way. Yes, they had the mop tops back in the day, and then they had, Yellow Submarine, among other things. And like you said, it goes into an aspect that we can't, live in the past. We have to look forward. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to be able to look back and say, yes, we all got to share and be alive during these great musical moments that they gave us as gifts that we get to still enjoy. Even after all of them are gone, other generations will be able to enjoy them too. So that's, the gift. You talk about the gift that keeps on giving. Beatles definitely are a part of that.
Most definitely, my friend. Most definitely. I know we were chatting, and as we were, before this live broadcast, I'm going to go into a little bit of. I know that during Quantum Leap, the original Quantum Leap, I'm actually enjoying. I'm definitely enjoying the new series, though. I think I've got
it's great.
one episode that's taped left that I have to go back and watch. It's probably the season finale. I'm glad the new one's been picked up for season 2. I really like what they've done with the show.
That was big news. That was able to get me through the week when I heard that, especially when I same type of thing. I saw it on one of my groups, and then pop, all my friends are like, "Hey, have you heard it's been renewed for?" And I'm like, "Yes," and I'm so glad you're sharing it with me.
When I saw that, I was like, "Yes," and I have to say that one of the things I know we've discussed in the past, even way before this show, Scott Bakula doing Imagine. So go ahead, and I'll let you set this one up. Set this one up with the episode, the background, and some memories.
All right. Well, imagine, if you will, young folk who are listening, or should we say seasoned people like Edward and myself. Yes. Quantum Leap, wonderful show. And they basically brought us into, I believe it was season 3, two-parter episode called The Leap Home. And this is an episode which, for me, is a wonderful one. I tend to get pretty emotional when I watch it. And they have Sam leaping into himself in his teenage years, and he's home for Thanksgiving. And the real leap is that he's supposed to help win a basketball game, and then he can leap out. But, he's sitting there saying, well, for crying out loud, Al, I don't want to leave. This is my family. I've got, my father's going to die in the 70s, and my sister's going to marry this huge jerk, and, my brother's going to die in Vietnam. So he's sitting there trying to convince his sister that he is from the future. And she's like, "Oh, people say far out in the future." I'm like, "Yeah, not anymore, guy." But, going through different things like that. And Sam is on the front porch, and he's playing a guitar. And Bakula is very talented when it comes to singing and music in general. And he talks about the Beatles, and he's like, so when the Beatles break up, his sister's like, "The Beatles break up?" He's like, "Yeah, Paul, gets together with this band called Wings, and they do some really great tunes." And, he's kind of, making things sound easy. And of course, it gets to the point where she's like, "Oh, what happens to John? He's my favorite." And he's, and Al, of course, shows up, and he's like, "Don't tell her." And he's like, he's going to write my favorite song. And she's like, oh, the favorite song from the future, well, why don't you sing it to me? So Bakula starts singing Imagine, and there's no overarching music. It's basically just him on the guitar, and he's singing it very softly. And he gets through the first stanza, I believe, and he's starting the second verse, and that's when his sister starts to cry, and she's like, I've never heard that song before. And he's like, well, he's not going to write it for another several years. And she's like, well, I don't want to believe that. And it was just the way that it meshed into the show. Here's Sam trying to put right what's once went wrong, and he's singing this song about imagine if the world was a little better, imagine if other people were able to get along and not worry about possessions or things of that nature. It worked so well for that episode, and I think I cannot think of a better song that would have worked in that scene. Honestly, it was perfect.
I can't argue with that. I mean, hey, even No More Lonely Nights, as much as I love the song, obviously, it
would have been a little harder sell.
I think a little harder sell. Well, I think also, if I remember the episode correctly, it was probably about 1964 or 1965 when that took place. So
yep,
somewhere around those lines. You might have more memory than I on that.
Well, I'm also a tiny bit of a Quantum Leap nut, so it was around the, I want to say, like the early 70s or late 60s, because well, actually it's probably later than that, because Sam was born in 53, so it was around, let's see, 60, like I want to say somewhere around 68 or so, or actually it was probably around like 70 or 68, anywhere. Somebody will correct us in the comments.
That could, and I, just to say that in the future, and I mean, of course we all wish for that future, of course. I mean, with the recent anniversary, and I mean, I think it is sad to think that hey, John's been gone longer now than he was ever alive. And that's really weird, and
that's the hard one. That's the hard one.
And I mean, how much, especially when I'll share through the messenger, when I'll share some of those like 1980 photos where he's kind of got not so much the round glasses look, but sort of like the tortoise shell, frames look, and kind of looking incredibly happy with his family. And I think that's what, I personally miss with both John and George. Not even so much, I mean, the music would have been great, where they were going would have been great, but that they don't have the chance to be with their families, first of all.
Exactly.
Among anything else.
Exactly.
Which is very, very important for all of us out there, family, friends, things like that. So I think what we're going to do is transition a little bit more into your wheelhouse, sir. So not only, have we discussed a little bit of Beatles, a little bit of many, many things over the years, but also one of the things is Comic-Con. Now, this gentleman right here, right on your screen. I don't know which way I'm pointing right now. I'm pointing towards the camera.
Just point directly to the screen. This guy right here.
Right there. That person. Right
this
there.
Guy.
So, introduced me to Comic-Con. I've still got some footage that I actually need to. I filmed it. I need to actually edit it, but I got to get the editing software, the new editing software. It's one that's not going to crash. But wanted to do a little walk down memory lane, and the first walk down memory lane is this gentleman right here.
Yes.
now the first celebrity, first Comic-Con, which in Providence for me was 2017. And we'll rewind a little bit further than that. So what was your first Comic-Con? What was it like? Who introduced you to it?
Oh, goodness. The crazy thing is that Comic-Cons weren't really necessarily introduced to me, but I do remember going to a convention in, I want to say 1995. And I remember going there because there were going to be a lot of Star Trek people there. There was going to be Voyager people there, but the main thing was that Jimmy Doohan was going to be there. Bear in mind, this was about, I want to say 3 months after he had like triple bypass surgery, not something that a person easily recovers from. And I just remember seeing him walk out on stage. He's in, this Hawaiian shirt looking like Don Ho, and a smile from ear to ear. And to be able to walk up to him later and get his autograph and it threw me because he was not speaking like Jimmy, you know, like we would hear him on the show for all those years. It was interesting for me to finally meet an actor, and it wasn't necessarily that I was meeting the person, because as you and I have discussed many a time, there's the person who most of us don't know. There's the Comic-Con version of that person, which are the ones we meet. And then there's the persona that we grew up with on television. Now, I personally recall this guy. This guy right here.
Just point to the camera. Yeah.
Pointing to the camera right there. This guy got the best compliment from Jonathan Frakes that has ever been given by Jonathan Frakes in the history of Comic-Cons. And I'm going to let you take the wheel on that.
That made my decade. Oh, man. I'll tell you. Well, the funny thing is, in the office, where I work, I don't say where I work on the show. I know some folks from work do watch, so you know where I am, obviously, and who I am and all that stuff. But so here's the deal. 2017 Comic-Con. This is my first Comic-Con going with this gentleman right here.
Going with me.
You know, and it was, I think he was the third one, because Weird Al was the first, where I geeked out with the Pop Street, which we'll kind of circle back to that.
Oh, we're circling back to that, definitely.
The second was Marina Sirtis, otherwise known as Counselor Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Very lovely, very, wow, just having a moment here. Okay, so
we have had several moments. We understand.
So, you know, we get up to Jonathan Frakes. Now, you both are very tall people. Me, not so much. So it's like, you know, they're standing between two redwood trees, practically.
So the redwood trees, and you're the shrub.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you know, me being of average height, for the record, average height. But this gentleman here, fairly tall gentleman, you know, as is Mr. Frakes. So, you know, Jonathan, I go up to him, you know, I forget exactly started the conversation. Something like, you know, nice to meet you. It
started with, I'll hit the Wayback Machine on that one. It started with, as we're walking towards this table, I basically told you, I'm like, he likes to joke around a bit. So when we got towards this table and he was getting ready for our stuff, and I said, you know, here it was, summer of 1990. Most people are thinking about, you know, what they're going to do for the summer. And here I am getting ready to go to college. And I'm not thinking about, you know, what am I going to do for, you know, the next 4 years of my life? I was thinking, what's going to happen after I heard Jonathan Frakes say, Mr. Worf? And then Frakes looks up and goes, fire. Because it was the summer of Best of Both Worlds. Yes. And that's when it segued into that. You were getting his signature, and I'll let you take.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So then I'm getting his signature, and he, you know, and he looks up. He goes, you know, we're talking. He looks. He goes, "Not that you weren't even, you know, born when the show premiered." I was like live when the show premiered. I said, "Thank you." I go. Oh my! I go. No, I'm actually. I mean, I'm 47 now. So at the time, I said I'm 42. He goes,
yep.
You're 42. You're really
best
young.
Compliment ever.
I was like, man, that totally has made my decade. Like I said, and now we get to share that story for the whole world to see over and over again. You know, obviously live broadcasted afterwards.
So when we had first gone in there, this good friend of mine who I've known for several years, he and I both have our different levels of, like, you know, nervousness around people, nervous around conventions and whatnot. And we're very open about it. We're the type that I'm like, so on a scale of 1 to you're completely mellow to 10, you're ready to climb the walls. He's like, I'm about a 7 right now. And I'm like, all right, this is good. We can work with this. You know, we'll take a little walk. We'll get down to 6. We'll be fine. Everything will be great. So we go over, and he's like, I don't know who I want to meet first. There's like so many people at this con. I don't know who to meet first. And we're by the ticket booth. And I'm like, well, Weird Al's table doesn't look busy. And Ed's like, oh, well, wait a minute. He was at the premiere of No More Lonely Nights. No, not No More Lonely Nights. Give my regard to Broad Street. Yeah. So we buy the ticket. Now, Weird Al, of course, had it set up where it strangely felt like kind of a bizarre minstrel show, in the sense that there were all these crossing curtains so passerbys couldn't get photos of Weird Al. Yes. So, you know, the people at the front of this little show, they said, okay, you're going to go behind 2 curtains, and, you know, Al's going to be in there. And So we go back there, and there's no one else there. It's just Weird Al, and he's sitting behind this thing, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And both of us are kind of like, "Wow, that was easy." And we go up, and Ed decides. I said to him, "Whatever you say to him is going to be the most unique thing he hears at this entire convention. Nobody else is going to say what you say." And that's where Ed takes the story.
All right. Well, thank you, my friend. So here's how it goes. Going in, and as you described, very much like that. I'm just gonna put this over here. I was trying to balance this on my lap, but you know what? I don't want to mess up the photos. So
you lost your balance.
Yeah, exactly. So I go in, and we're talking. Well, first, I go, okay, and I'm such nervous energy because it's my first con for celebrity. So I'm just going, okay, I'm probably really going to mess this up, but I just got to say it anyways. I really liked UHF, which is a good film. It's a good, funny, silly film. If you're in a bad mood, highly recommend it. It's out on Blu-ray and DVD.
Drink from the fire hose, baby.
So I said, but I remember that you were at the premiere of Give My Regards to Broad Street in LA, and I think it was just so cool that you got to meet Paul McCartney. And you're saying that his expression, he kind of had a taken aback expression.
It was a moment of both amazement, respect, and sheer awe that you knew that. It was, I can't really perfectly, recreate it, but it was along the lines of, he was like, it was just that moment of, he couldn't decide which emotion he wanted to express, so he did all three at the same time.
And he goes, well, the way I remember it, he said, well, I was just happy he knew who I was. And it was just a perfect thing. And I know they've collaborated on some projects as well. I give my eyes a rest for a second too. They collaborated on some projects. I think there was a 3D movie that they collaborated on at a theme park. I forget what the name of it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was at Universal Studios, I think. One of the cast was Man on the Street Interview. It was part of a ride, or Weird Al's Wild Ride or something like that. One of the people, Man on the Street, is Sir Paul McCartney being interviewed. He used a couple clips in one of his tours, I think, where he was doing a mock interview with Paul McCartney. So Paul would kind of say gibberish because they're using clips in between, different takes and everything and jumbling it up. And this had to be back in the 90s when he was doing this, and with other celebrities too. So just kind of, funny interviews in between where Al's supposed to be the interviewer, inserting himself into the footage and everything. It was quite an honor. It was really, really cool to just meet him, and especially, having you as my guide, my friend. But yeah, there was him. There was Jonathan Frakes, so otherwise known as Commander Riker from that day. Right here. We got right here.
The man with the leg in the air. That's right. Because of his
That's
bad
the Riker
back.
maneuver right there.
Because apparently he had gotten his back injured a few years prior to being on Next Gen. So anytime you see him putting his leg up when he's leaping or vaulting over a chair like he did in the first season, that's largely why.
That's I think I'd read that somewhere, but it's always interesting to kind of hear that. Now, at his age now, I'm sure he's not going to be doing as much leaping and vaulting and everything. I don't know.
We could see him do some crazy stuff in Picard next season. So who knows?
True. Well, I have yet to catch an episode. I know. Revoke my Star Trek card now.
Hey, we've all. I would rather be living now where there is too much Trek to catch up on than that dry zone where we had barely any Trek to work with.
Well, I would be remiss if we also didn't bring up another favorite topic, and we'll probably go back to a couple.
Oh, I know which topic this one goes to.
Oh, you already know. So
you've already got 18 pictures ready. I know.
No, not. But I think you're about to be thrown a little bit of a curveball with this one.
I
want to talk about the negatives.
Aha!
Now, I'm going to set this up and let this gentleman explain it very well, but there's a show. It's not streaming. It's not released on any other media except for a DVD set from 2005, which is hard to find.
Very hard to find unless you want to shell out the dough, my guys.
Yeah, exactly. Funny enough, Nowhere Man is the title of the show. I believe it may have been named after the Beatles song, after the infamous Beatles song.
Quite possibly.
Probably
Not to be
more
confused
than
with that one about the person going in through the bathroom window, like that.
Scanner Darkly. Yes, 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 yes. But yeah, I'm going to let you explain the story. When you got me hooked on that show and I got to see it, we're not going to spoil anything for anybody out there.
Oh, of course not.
But
of course not.
Go for it, my friend. How you kept you kept bugging me for, what was it, 10 years?
It was about a decade. Basically, okay. Ed and I are the type of people that we enjoy our television shows, and sometimes they are very niche shows. I mean, I'm the guy at a comic convention who looks around and I say, "Oh, do you have WizKids?" Yes, that's an actual show. Or, "Hey, do you have that one season show called John Doe?" Yes, we have that. That's also a one season show. Yeah. Firefly. Everybody knows about Firefly. I'm talking about the shows that hardly anyone watched. But with Nowhere Man, it premiered right before Voyager. And there we were. And I was finishing up graduate school. And I thought, oh, this show's going to be on forever. And when I mentioned it to Ed, I'm like, "Ed, this show is great. It's got, like, these mental twists and turns, and you got these conspiracy theories and this, really amazing lead character who doesn't know what's real. And every time he's trying to figure out, basically, this guy's a photographer, and he takes a picture of these four men being hung, I can't remember, in a gallows. And he has this open night where he's at his art studio or photography studio, and everybody's walking around taking a look at all these pictures. And there's, some really gritty stuff going on in there. But Hidden Agenda is the one that pretty much captivates everybody. And he doesn't really talk about it, but he has this as like the central piece of his work. He goes out to dinner with his wife. He goes to the bathroom. He comes back from the bathroom. His wife is no longer at the table they were sitting at. There's two new people. And he says to the maitre d', he's like, "What's going on? Allison and I were just sitting here." And the maitre d's like, "Who are you? I have no idea who you are." And he's like, all right. Enough of the joke. Where's Allison? She drove me here. And he's like, "Sir, you got to leave." So he's incensed, thinking this is some kind of crazed practical joke. He goes to the ATM. His cards don't work. He goes to his house. His key doesn't work. And when the door finally opens and his wife is on the other side, she doesn't know who he is. And there's another man in the house that she claims is her husband, who has a very large shotgun, basically saying if he doesn't leave, he's going to be leaving with a limp. So the whole aspect of this show goes into this secret organization that wants him to give up the negatives of the picture Hidden Agenda. And it's a single season show. It is full of all kinds of twists and turns. And I kept bugging Ed for years and years and years. It's much like trying to chop down that tree. You just sit there and you got the hatchet, and it's like eventually this tree is going to fall. And after a solid decade, Ed finally catches, I can't remember exactly how you watched it. I don't know if you bought them first or if you caught one on YouTube or something, but you had said, "Oh, this looks really good." And I'm like, "I've been telling you for years." I mean, I was, for all the people out there in the chat, I was posting about this on Usenet groups, on a Vax terminal. That's how far back I go talking about this show.
Well, I'll fill in that part of the story. And the show, so the show itself was between, I think, 1995 and 1996.
Yep.
No internet that we know of. It's very much of its time, but you can, there are online groups and everything. And it was probably through Netflix, but not Netflix streaming. No. Netflix
discs.
Yes. Yes. So I'm watching and I'm returning and I'm watching and I'm returning and I'm like, yeah, this is really good. So again, no spoilers. You'll have to seek it out for yourself.
And great guest stars. Some wonderful guest stars.
well worth the journey. Because I've got 2 copies of that set. I would, of course, one for one.
Of course, one to open, one to eventually sell.
Well, maybe
keep in beautiful condition.
Hopefully,
right next to the Beatles.
But a wonderful show. I mean, really, yeah. You know what? Fantastic, and really, again, before so many other things that came before it, and of course, John Doe. I could give some recommendation to John Doe, but that one's not quite legitimately released. There are ways of getting around that, sort of, but
I mean,
I still thought Nowhere Man was the better of the two. These are very niche shows. It's like Max Headroom, 20 minutes into the future. Yes,
exactly
the
20
Max TV
minutes.
series, which was still kind of ahead of its time.
Oh, it was completely ahead of its time. It was talking about different aspects of the internet before we really knew what it was. I mean, the internet, existed in the 80s, but it wasn't in common use. And even when I like to refer to the mid to late 90s as when the internet was in diapers, because that's about the time that, we were looking into shows like this. Like with John Doe, probably the biggest weakness behind it is the main actor, Dominic Purcell, wasn't really a household name until 2 years. No, let me think about this. It was about 2001. So it was about 2 or 3 years later when he was the brother Lincoln, or Link the Sink, as people remembered him on the TV show Prison Break. He was the one that his brother was trying to break out of prison. So getting to see him prior to that and realizing, yes, he can carry a show. And then when he's on there with Dominic Miller or Wentworth Miller, I'm sorry, I got their names confused. You have Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell, both being these brothers trying to break out of prison. And seeing John Doe gives you an idea of, okay, yeah, he can carry a show, but he's not quite there yet. And then once they give him Prison Break, they're like, you go for, I think it was 5 seasons. And that was after the strike, that it was one of the shows that survived the strike. They just had a very short season 3.
Excellent, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna weave in some more Beatles content as well. So kind of going through. See, there's no real plan, no real hidden agenda, except for the negative.
Stop.
That's a really inside joke out there. Folks out there, if you think Broad Street is obscure, well.
Second that I show up to this man's house and I have a strip of negatives to show him, he'll be like, okay, you're going to take a cigar, put a little pencil in the back of the cigar, start smoking that thing. We know you're with the company.
Of course, but I would deny it, wouldn't I?
Yes, you would.
Oh, that's a really inside joke, folks. You'll have to watch the show. But I'm also trying to think. So, growing up, I know you grew up with parents. It's okay to mention, a couple siblings and stuff. Were they Beatles fans at all? Did they enjoy any of the solo works, any of the Beatles stuff, anything like that you can remember?
I would say that every now and again I would catch my father singing the Beatles. Every now and again I would catch him just out of nowhere. It's like he did this with Paul Simon. He did it with a few other things. My second sister, the one who's no longer with us, she had made tapes for my father that would be any number of things. It could be the Beatles. It could be Elvis Costello. It could be, basically anything that my sister was into at the time. And whenever my father would drive, and I think this was kind of a boomer thing, because we have to remember that when like my parents were driving, airbags were not a thing. And you'd have your hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. And whenever my dad would hear a song that he enjoyed, his thumbs would go up. And my sister used to refer to that as Dad's winging music, because he would make little wings with his thumbs whenever he thought something sounded cool. And I could remember every now and again there would be a Beatles song that would come on. And of course, anytime somebody hears a Beatles, I mean, if you're not moving when you hear a Beatles song, you're most likely not breathing. Was kind of my philosophy towards it. And I can't remember any specific songs, but I do know that anytime a Beatles tune would come on, because of the fact that my father sang at his college, he was in a men's chorus group, and he actually met with them for years. One of the songs that actually you remember, because this was played at my father's memorial service, was Blackbird. And Blackbird is one of those songs that, you tend to get pretty happy when you hear it, but it's also a very subtle tune that isn't quite, it's one of those songs that when I hear it now, it makes me a little sad, but it also reminds me of this choral group that my dad was a part of. And to hear these very aging gentlemen singing Blackbird, even if it wasn't completely on key, they knew my father loved the song, and they knew that it was one that our family loved too. Thankfully, I got some video of it at the last possible second, and it's still out there. So definitely Blackbird was one that I knew he loved, and by proxy, I end up thinking of him whenever I hear that song, and that's a good thing to have.
No, definitely, he's wonderful. I was fortunate enough to meet him, as you know,
Mhm.
at one of the family gatherings, and it's one of the nicest people I ever met. Especially during that memorial service, and they're singing. I think they sang that. I think they sang "When I'm 64." They changed it to "When I'm 84."
They did.
So I was,
I'm like, they took artistic license and changed
I
it to 84 because none of them were under the age of 60.
yeah. At that particular point, no. I mean, of course. I mean, I'm not out there going, well, they got this wrong. They got that. No, I mean, they were. It was very heartfelt, and I think the emotion more than anything, especially with a Beatles song, in particular Beatles songs, solo Beatles, anything that you might enjoy. The emotion will carry it a long way. It doesn't always have to be on tune. It doesn't always have to be whatever it was in key. But I mean, these gentlemen were singing their hearts out, singing with feeling, and of course, the occasion. I was honored to be a part of that.
We were happy to have you.
they were very very. It was very heartfelt. I think I remember one of them was, and this is before I even watched Breaking Bad, Streets of Laredo. I think that was one of them. And it's a very somber song. You could picture the Wild West, kind of the town square, the Southwest at night. The sun's just kind of going down.
Yep.
That very much that vibe to it. I think that's was it Marty Robbins? Is that the name of the artist?
I believe so. Yes.
I mean, it's probably been covered a whole bunch of different times.
If we went through every single Beatles cover, we'd be here until about Thursday of 2 weeks from now. So
I got the time. And that's how you're touching the solo.
But you don't have the bandwidth.
No, I definitely don't have the bandwidth. Oh man, I mean, this is fun, my friend. Well, let's get back to some more Comic-Con stuff here. Let's see if we can
Oh yes.
I'd love going to some of these memories. Let's see. I have to take these off because these are more for distance than anything. Way back when you met me, I had perfect vision, but I mean, I was a heck of a lot younger.
Way back when you met me, I had a full head of hair, sir. So
I had the Jedi mullet, as you called it.
Yes,
you
did have the Jedi mullet back in those days.
Oh, let's see. I'm just trying to remember memorable. Let's see. That's Riker, Data. I mean, there was a whole bunch of Star Trek people at that particular con that year.
Oh yes, those worked very well.
Of course, we got Maria Sirtis right there.
She gave me the best burn at that same con. She gave me the best burn at that con.
Go ahead and tell that.
Long story, somewhat shorter. Basically, Ed was there when I was doing a project for my daughter who was graduating high school in the future at the time. Figure that one out, Marty. And I had already gotten her autograph, but I wanted to show her a picture of my daughter. And Ed got her autograph, and I was like, yeah, she can be kind of sassy. She'll zing you if you're not careful. So I went over and I had my phone and I was like, yeah, scrolling through, and I'm like, oh, this is the little girl you're going to make, or the young woman that you're going to make so happy when, I give her this gift of all these, Star Trek actors. And she takes my phone and goes, oh, she is so beautiful. I am so glad she got her looks from her mom's side of the family. I'm sitting there, I'm like, you don't even know me, and you just gave me like the best zing ever. I was just like, hi-yo.
Well, just this is the photo we got to take too. I should have gone back and gotten this autograph, but
very well. You still have a good chance, sir. I mean, she's not living in America now, but she will come back for cons. I'm positive of it.
Sorry. I was actually, that kind of a little riff off of that. I was actually last night watching the Stallone documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not on physical media. You and I love physical media, but Rocky versus Drago, I did end up buying it on Prime. But there's a documentary on Prime where there's a 1 hour documentary where it goes back with him, kind of cutting the film. So it's kind of interesting to see him recutting the film rather.
Interesting.
Later.
That
song is obviously playing because that's part of the Rocky IV soundtrack. I've got the wrestler picture, but I don't know if that one's safe for YouTube. Oh yeah, Aisha Tyler, of course, 2018 New York Comic Con when I went to that.
See, you're a braver man than I. I haven't gone to a New York con yet.
I'll tell you what, man, like you said, it's like Rhode Island on steroids. It really, really is. And Rhode Island's pretty busy. So, I mean, just imagine that, but
Very
maybe,
busy.
a couple more. But I'm just trying to see if I can get, this is like live TV, folks. So,
Well, that's why when you and I first went and the bridge between the two buildings, the fire marshals decided to make it one way. So
yes.
Normal foot traffic was very busy and not very friendly to people who are differently abled for that year. I will definitely say that.
Yeah, it was a little bit better the last time I went, just the last month.
Good. Yes.
Kiefer Sutherland. That was a good one.
That was his first.
And he was about like a 2 at that convention. He was chilled. He's drinking his Dunkin' Donuts coffee or whatever might have been in there. We'll say Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
That was also his first con, as my understanding goes. And what I loved about the signature for that, see, the funny thing is that first day, you and I were both pretty nervous. It was my first time being at the con. It was the first time you had been to a con ever.
Yes.
By the time we went up to Kiefer, there he is. He's got his glasses on. He's like, doing this signing. And you made it a point to make it a unique experience for the actors, or as I like to say, the talent, because they are the talent. And so you went up to Kiefer and, you asked for him to do the signature. And you said, this is one of the favorite films I loved watching when I was a kid. And he looks up at you and he says, yeah, me too.
I love it. I was just thinking about the other day when I was somehow walking around getting ready for work or something like that. I often think of that comment. I laugh because I'm like, yeah, that was a good one.
It was definitely one of his favorites. I mean, yeah. I'm lucky enough that I have met Wil Wheaton probably enough times that he probably should have a, a restraining order against him. I'm kidding. But basically, Wheaton has every now and again on his Facebook, he'll drop 100 invites for people to go onto his Discord. Now, I had no idea what Discord was a year and a half ago, and I decided, okay, I may as well try to get one of these Discord things. Through luck, fate, God, fate, time, whatever, I somehow ended up on his Discord. And it's weird to be able to actually have a semi-conversation with him. When Facebook is there, it's like millions of people asking him questions, and he just doesn't have enough time in the day to answer. But getting onto his Discord, he's able to answer things. And I said, we had a section in there for cons. And I said, is anybody going to Steel City Comic Con? And Wil Wheaton says, yep, I'm going to be there. Hope to see you there. And so when I met him, this was like the third time or so that I had met him. Of course, celebrities do not, as much as people would like to believe, celebrities are not going to remember you unless you do something insane. I'm not going to be screaming trash bags at the top of my voice. Much love to Murdoch, but I'm not going that route. And being able to talk with him about video games or movies, or actually, I recently asked him if he gets nervous signing those photos that have like the whole cast and there's somebody trying to get everybody's signature on it. And Wheaton says, I do get a little nervous because I don't want to screw up anything. But at the same time, he says, by the time they get to me, they're almost done. So when he fills out, he says he's finished countless Next Generation full cast photos over the years. And his favorite thing is when he signs it with his name, either he'll say or write at the bottom of the photo, your quest is now complete. And I never knew that. And every now and again, you can find just little bizarre things like that happen at a convention that are yours, and also the talent as well. But you're going to remember it for the rest of your life. You will remember that interaction with Marina Sirtis, with Jonathan Frakes, and especially with Weird Al Yankovic, clearer because they were personal to you. And that's why I love going to cons, because I get to have those moments every single time I go.
Well, and hey, you were the guy that opened the door, my friend. That is appreciated. This chat's appreciated. Believe me, this is so much fun having you on. Bringing up another one here. This is before Obi-Wan. Yeah, Hayden Christensen right there.
The
Yeah.
fun that we had with him. Now,
That was very nice too. That
it
was a very,
was
very nice interaction.
it
You know?
was one of the first cons that he had done after he had kind of taken a break from acting.
Yep.
Now, Hayden's no fool. Hayden goes to the internet. Hayden knows what people thought of the movies at that time, but he knew that people wanted to see him. People wanted to get his autograph. People were happy to see him. He shook our hands back before, the plague, which
Yes.
has changed everything, including those type of cons. But, it was very not so assembly line. It's not like going to Shatner nowadays where he has two people sitting on either side of him, and it's like one person takes the item and they hand it to Shatner, and then Shatner, signs it, and then he hands it to the next guy, and there's like very little interaction with the talent. No, Hayden was there. He had, I want to say, two handlers, like one person with the autographs, one person that we gave the money to. And he stood right up and he was like, "Hey, nice to meet you." Goes over, shakes our hands. I'm like, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that." And I said, "Now, you want to talk about a goofy thing to say to a person that's known for the Star Wars franchise?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to give you the best compliment here and tell you that Jumper was the first Blu-ray movie I ever bought." And he looks at me and he's like, "I'm sorry." And I said, "But I loved the way that you and Samuel L. Jackson were in that movie." And he's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to be doing another movie together. Not Star Wars, but we are going to do another movie together." And it segues into stuff like that. That's one of the things that I know you and I pretty much put to rest immediately. We weren't saying, just think about what you're going to say to them and don't be nervous. My philosophy was, for crying out loud, just be yourself and you'll have such a better time, other than, "Oh my God, I should have mentioned this," or whatever. It's like, yeah, if you had 2 hours, you'd bore them to death in 10 minutes, just like me.
Well, I remember my interaction with it was very nice. I remember, just saying, just thank you for being part of the franchise, and I,
Mhm.
I'm not going to go up to somebody and absolutely, I'll keep it family friendly here, but, crap all over their, films, whatnot. I mean, you're an actor, actress, whatever the case may be. You're
The
paid to do
talent.
a
They're
role.
the talent.
Yeah, they're the talent. You're paid to do a role, and you're paid to make that vision come to life.
Mhm.
But he said, "Well, thank you." It was a really nice interaction. I remember looking at him going, he looks younger now than he did then.
Yeah,
That's
he
the
does.
scary part.
Because
Yeah.
he probably has a personal trainer that kicks him out of bed at about 4:30 in the morning to
Oh,
get him on the
mhm.
treadmill. And, "Come on, we got to get some gains." It's like, "Will you please just let me sleep?"
There is no sleep. Yeah, that's probably what they'd say. Well, I think the next one, nice little surprise. I think I remember we'll share some memories of this one right here.
Oh, yes. Now, this one is one of my personal favorite moments because, that is the great, great, great Tim Curry. You can tell a lot of people about a person by how they first were introduced to Tim Curry. I can say the prominent role that I remember him for is Clue,
Yeah.
but the one that I hold the most dear to my heart is Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror. And you had people that were at that con that were going to meet him. Now, very sadly, he did have a stroke a number of years ago, so he is in a wheelchair and he cannot sign at conventions. If you want something signed by Tim Curry, you bring it to the convention, his handlers take it, and they give you a certificate of authenticity and they bring it back. Mainly, they tried to do, I think it was 100 at one con a couple of years after he had the stroke, and it was just a disaster. Not in the sense that he didn't want to. He wanted to, but physically, the movement of the hand and everything, when a person has a stroke, you're just never the same. So there I am, and this man had said, "Oh, I think I should get my picture with Tim Curry." And I'm like, "Oh, that'd be kind of cool." And he says, "You're going with me." And I'm like, "But I can't." And he says, "Happy birthday." Because I was up there for my birthday, and I'm like, well, that pretty much negates anything else I could say. We both went back there with our umbrellas because we had our
Yeah,
umbrellas in that photo.
that is
And
true.
there we are pretending to be regal, but Tim, of course, sitting in his chair was already regal. They already had,
Yes.
similar to Weird Al, they had about 4 different layers so people couldn't take any sneak pictures of him.
Right.
And it also safeguards his dignity, which I feel they did a wonderful job of. And
Yeah.
that was definitely one of my favorite photos. You can see the smiles on our faces in that picture. We could not contain ourselves. We were just, while we were in the room, it was just, Mr. Curry, thank you so much for coming to this convention. And he's like, oh, you're welcome. And,
Yeah, and that was it. That was all that had to be said, because you don't want to overtire somebody, especially after in that
Mhm. Well,
condition.
here's one that's fun, and I found I chuckled about this because I read, whenever you get a professional photo op like that one, hold that one up if you could, Ed. One of
hold on a second.
or just hold
I
it,
was actually flipping to another. No worries. It's live TV. It's not edited. This
we go on the flow here. Well, the wonderful thing is that every single person that sees one of these is thinking, why would you pay that kind of money to look like you're standing in front of the worst matte painting of Mount Kilimanjaro? But one of the things that they have whenever you get a professional photo op done is they have a list of rules on the item, or the list of the rules that they have for that photo company. And one of the primary ones is, don't try to kiss the actor. Now, a lot of us understand that they have to list these rules because somebody has tried to do them. Don't try to kiss the actor. First of all, none of us would like to be kissed if we weren't expecting it or barely knew someone. And that's a pre-COVID thing. So not even getting into the whole COVID thing. But when I went to New Jersey, where they had all the Trek actors, there was a handmade sign that said, don't try to jump in the actor's arms. It will not end well. Meaning somebody tried it and probably broke a hip in the process.
Well, I've got another one for you. It's 1 of 5. Don't worry about this one.
Oh no, you've got plenty. Now there's our regal woman. Woman out there.
I know. It was, you know what? I have a couple more of these. I'm not gonna bore you with.
You have more than a couple, sir.
Well, at my count, I got 1, 2. Hold on.
We're almost to double digits here, folks, and that shows this man's respect for this ravishing woman of Star Trek. This absolutely amazing woman of Star Trek.
That's the photo right there.
That is a fantastic one, because I love how she will do that.
Yes.
In a fairly large chunk of her photos. She had a regal presence about her that year we saw her at Rhode Island Comic-Con. And I will never forget, as she's on the Sky Bridge and her son is pushing her in the chair. And he yells out, he's like, everybody needs to get over to the sides. And she turns around very sweetly, I mind you. She's in her wheelchair and she just turns around like this, looks at him and goes, shut up. I was probably the only person that witnessed that, but it made me laugh for the rest of the con. Every single time I saw her, I just thought of her very sweetly telling her son to shut up.
And only a parent could really do that. Only
exactly.
A parent could really,
in a loving way.
Put us in our place. I mean, look, even now, hey, I've been on my own for quite a while, but you know what? Even now,
mom's got that power.
Oh, most definitely. You know what? That's the total respect. That's the total love. Now, this is one I wish that I could have said something. I think you know where this is going to go.
Oh,
and
yes.
This relates to the recent box set, the recent vinyl box set that came out.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the digital version. Spies Like Us on digital. On streaming. But yes, there.
He's actually becoming a regular at Steel City Con. He was there Saturday and Sunday with Beverly D'Angelo, and he actually was allowing people to take selfies at his table this time.
Wow.
However, and there is also always a however, this is one of the things that people have found out about Comic-Cons. Fridays are your best days, because that's where you get, that's kind of like the low weight day. Saturday and Sunday, that's usually when you have people that are only there for 2 days, or in Paula Abdul's case, she was only there for 1 day. The crowding at Steel City Con this Sunday was so bad that the fire marshal had to keep people from coming in the building because it was at capacity. And I went out to my car and got some water because, you're old like me, you got to hydrate. I go out to the car, I hydrate, I go back, and the person who was there, a police officer, is like, you have to wait in this entire line to get back. I'm like, sir, I have a photo op in like 40 minutes. I have to get back in the building. Well, you can't get back in this way. That was kind of a nice way of saying, ain't my problem. So I just went around the side of the building and went in the photo op door. Simple enough, because I know the layout of the building. But yeah, that's the one thing that Ed and I are also big fans of, is they tend to have quiet rooms at cons. You can go into a quiet room, no noise above a whisper's volume. He and I would go to, if we started feeling like the crowds were getting too crazy and it was too far to walk back to the car, we go up to the second level. We'd walk in that room. There would be no talking. People just with coloring books. Nobody looking at phones. They're like, no phones. Don't listen to music in here. And we would just sit there with a coloring book for like 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, and then just head back out of the con. Nice and good stuff.
It's great that they have those. I'll show off another.
I gotta say, for the years that she had, her penmanship was spot on in these. I mean, obviously her signature changed as she got older, as it does with all of it, but she would always sign the person's name, blessings, and her name. And I loved that. I loved that she was able to put so much personality into the items that she signed. And sadly, there are people out there who, would want to get those on eBay. Personally, I wouldn't buy on eBay just because I didn't get it myself. I have no idea if it's real or not. The ones that we have gotten, they are real. I know they are. They have to be.
All these
fascinating joke that people will get eventually. Oh, there we go, Mr. Swan.
That's the same one as Pete Best. I've already done the Pete Best video, so I'm not going to show that one this time around. But so this one is coming to you. And
yes.
you want to say the one that you got for me, but you can totally say that. That's fine. It's
Well, there's a certain Forever Your Girl that I was going to have that signature. It was one of Paula Abdul's first conventions this last weekend at Steel City Comic Con. In the beginning, they didn't have any kind of restrictions. They're like, just go up, pay this if you want a photo, pay this if you want a autograph, pay this if you want both. And then, of course, the eventual, hi, I have 20 things to sign because I work for blah, blah, blah company, and I have all these $100 bills to throw at you guys, while she gets to sign her name on every single one of these 20 items. It happens at cons. There are people who do this for eBay. There are people who do this for super collectors who cannot afford to travel around the country, and yet they'll pay other people to go get a signature for them. It's a very weird business, and I don't mind it very much, but it does get a little annoying when somebody like Chevy Chase, how do I say this nicely? He despises super collectors. At least the con I was at, he's like, I want to get the rest of these people, and you just brought me 20 things to sign, and this takes some time, and I want to ration my time out to people. So kudos on him for trying to get the folks through the line quicker.
You want to get to everybody you can. I mean, and especially, I think one of the more fond memories before we kind of go into con etiquette, as it were.
Oh yeah,
for Connecticut, but con etiquette, tips and all that stuff, right here. Yeah, I know. And the story I was told was that he did sign them, but of course, at the time that we both saw him, he was not super well. He was, and having the sunglasses on.
We saw his final convention appearance. We got to see him walk off into the sunset, and I think it was only, I want to say it was about a month and a half later that he died. I mean, I honestly think the cons were keeping him alive at that point.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful part of both of our childhoods, many people's childhoods, with Big Bird and Sesame Street. And I think that'll bring us to sort of our final topic, with a little bit of time remaining. But so, with doing the cons and everything, and first of all, before we get to all that, I hope everybody's enjoying it. Please make sure to give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I'm just going to ask you, do you have anything you want to plug and tell folks about? Anything, any sort of
Well,
channels, anything like that?
one of the things I would recommend, Ed and I have spoken about con etiquette, not to be confused with that marvelous state. One of the things that I do, hold up one more of your pictures there. This will be a good visual thing.
Doesn't matter which picture, right?
Doesn't matter which picture. You just pick your favorite. We all know it's going to be in a shell anyway.
Well, that's the one that's on top of the binder, right?
There you go. Well, the thing is, whenever I go to conventions, there will be people who pay whatever amount of money they want, and those are BCW slip covers, and I believe they go for about $20, and there's usually about 100 or so in the box.
Something like that. I have to get my supply. It's getting very low.
Yes.
I have like one or two, so I have to do another order.
So typically what I do whenever I go to conventions, and Ed has started to do this and I do this, if I'm going to get only maybe 3, I usually think maybe I'll get a couple more autographs. So I'll take extras of those slipcovers. But I've gotten to the point where I take at least 15. And the reason I do that is because there's always one person. There is always one person at the con who pays all this money for a really expensive photo, gets it, well, not an expensive photo, but an expensive signature, gets it signed, and then they don't quite realize that they've got to get a cover on this because people are walking around in the con, they're drinking soda, you know, people are bumping into each other, things start getting a little crowded. When I was at my last convention at Steel City Comic Con, there was a person who had gotten not 1, not 2, but 3 of the Hobbits signed. It was, I think the only one they didn't have was Pippin, but they did have Merry, and they did have Sam, and they did have Frodo. So this is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $250 worth of autographs that they are just carrying around. And I'm confident enough that when I come up to somebody at a convention, I'm not, you know, creep-tastic or anything. I'll tap on the shoulder and I'll be like, you know, pardon me, I noticed that you have these photos here. I have spare slipcovers. Everybody will offer to pay me, and I'm like, no, that's not why I do this. It's because it's my con etiquette. I don't want to see somebody taking a soda and bump into you accidentally and spill it all over these photos that you just paid literally hundreds of dollars for. Ed has done this for, I can't remember exactly which, I think it was the second Comic-Con that we did together, but you did that, and it gives you kind of that joyous feeling of knowing that you're making somebody else's convention better. So yeah, exactly. Kind of what I would plug is pick up some of those slipcovers, and you can definitely give a few of those out. Don't go crazy with it because the vendors are going to start getting pissed because they're there to make that money. So don't do that in front of a vendor. Just, you know, if you notice somebody that needs them, you can just take 2 or 3 of them out and be like, here you go. I guess I would say
I'll definitely recommend, right? So yes, this right here, got a heavy duty binder. Right, and it could be anything, but it's a 3-inch binder. And what I do is I've obviously got all my there's my Beatles autographs there, right, folks?
Yeah.
You know, these are the other autographs. So what I do is I take these out. I'll put those slip covers in, as you said. I'll put them in. I'll take these out, leave them at home. The reason is I don't want to carry my whole book of autographs.
Yeah, don't take your whole bag with you.
You know, take it out, put it in a safe spot. Take the blank ones, put it in, carry the binder with you. That way, God forbid, yes, you lose the binder, you haven't lost everything. But
exactly.
Definitely, you know, kind of a good one to pick up. Really, any one of these. There's no branding. I'm not making money for this. Believe me, this is just kind of stuff that's helped out. I think should we go with the I guess the Pedialyte is the next thing.
Oh yes, people who are not exactly of our age,
but, you know, something along those lines.
Basically, we're at the point in our lives where when you go to a convention, first of all, if you don't have a step counter, you can bring one because you're going to be walking a lot. You're going to be walking a lot at Comic-Con, and one of the main things that I forget, and Ed and I joke about this, I eat a lot. I'm a very hungry individual, but when I go to cons, it'll be about 3, 4 in the afternoon, and we'll run into each other after getting our individual autographs, and it's like, have you eaten yet? And it's like, no, I don't think I've eaten. It's like the last time we ate was 7:30 this morning. We got to get something to eat. And with the hydration, that's definitely something that you can bring with you. Some cons are not too friendly about you bringing in your own water. Some are, some aren't. It really depends on the con. Sometimes if you park close enough, you can go out to your car, get some water, get some Pedialyte, whatever, type of rejuvenation you need, and then head back and enjoy the rest of the con. I would also recommend one other thing. Thank you for reminding me. Whenever we get signatures, and you'll go up to somebody and you hand them their money, and they'll say, oh, do you want your name? Do you want this personalized? You'll get people who have the worst penmanship in the world, who will spell your name, and depending on the age of the talent that you're going to see, sometimes they might not understand exactly how to spell your name. I've gotten to the point where I take my own Post-it notes, I write my name on them, and sometimes I'll write a quote that I want on them.
Oh, that's
it helps a lot because it makes you feel less nervous. Now, if you don't put a novel on there. I mean,
yeah.
I did one with Adam Baldwin, and I was one of the first people he saw that day. So I basically did one of the last line deliveries he did in the TV movie, or not the TV movie, the movie My Bodyguard. And it's a fairly long speech, but he did the whole thing. He didn't ask for any extra money. I gladly would have paid it if he did. But most of the time, if you write your own stuff, then you will not have to worry about that level of stress. And you can also say, like, I want silver pen, I want gold pen, I want a brown pen, or whatever kind of colors you want, whichever ones you think will pop. Or if you're slightly more daring, you can bring your own pen. Just make sure to get it back. There are certain actors, sorry, not saying the name. There are certain actors, certain talent.
We don't want to get sued. We don't want to get
certain sued. Talent may not remember to give you that pen back. So, but sometimes it's no fault of their own. You'll just be like, I paid $25 for that pen. Give it back.
Look, I'm notorious for Post-it notes. So sometimes I'm just notorious for that. Sometimes I'll forget whatever. Oh yeah, and then Post-it note. Okay, a pen, especially a nice one that could be a little more expensive. No, I totally get that.
Exactly. And I guess the other thing is, anytime you're getting ready to go a con, this is the one thing you don't think about first. Get your car serviced. Don't be one of those people that just does an oil change, because if you're going to a con that's more than 200 miles away and you're driving through, Indiana or Boise, Idaho, or wherever, and your car breaks down, it's not going to be very fun. Take the time to make sure that you budget not only for the con, but make sure to take care of your car. And if you're taking a plane, so much the better. Make sure you get a good Uber. Make sure, you rent a good car, whatever. There are so many different aspects to a convention that you don't really think about in the beginning times of going. That's why this person here, who is now an expert, can also give you some good advice and good tips on that.
I think we've covered it. Just I think for me, the last convention I went to, November, friend from work, I won't say their name or anything, but friend from work, their daughter, and of course their daughter's friend. I think the daughter was just starting high school. The friend. Mm-hmm. For me, it was kind of interesting because when we first went to the cons, you and I, it was much more like, well, we, I still like the autographs. Don't get me wrong. I still like the memorabilia, as you can tell by my show right here.
Indeed.
But the whole thing was, it was much more about that. Now that I'm about 5 years in, a couple, 5 or 6 cons in from different ones, whatever the number is at this point, I'm finding more that I only got the one autograph. I'll show that in another show at some point. It was Karen Parsons, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes.
There never could be a better moment than this one. See, I always try to bring it back to the Beatles, folks, because hey, that's exactly.
You try.
This one by Paul McCartney. This one.
The Swan.
This is Swan, because he's riding on the back of a swan. I'll show it right now. What the heck? So this was hers right here from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
There you go. You see, she's got now. That's the other thing is sometimes it's also fun when you go to a convention. I can tell that she is right-handed, but Edward and I have been lucky enough to meet a couple of people who are left-handed. And I love being able to chat with people who are left-handed, because it pretty much goes into they had a lot harder time in school
Yes.
because of smearing the ink and such. I mean, Edward here is
I can relate.
left-handed, so he knows of such things. I mean, you have Robert Davey and Joe Pantoliano, both people in the Goonies, both left-handed. Robert Patrick from Terminator 2, Copland,
Yes.
and any other number of things, also left-handed. Brent Spiner, left-handed.
Yes.
You know, it's great when I get to meet people, because, you know, anytime that they're doing a signature, I'll be like, oh my God, you're left-handed. And the reason that I get excited is because my father was left-handed, and come on, you know, my father being able to talk to a fellow lefty is something that he would definitely appreciate. And
he did
one of my
nice.
darn good friends is a lefty. So
of course. There's actually 2 of the Beatles that are left-handed. Quick,
but which two?
No, this is a little quiz for you. I told you there would be a quiz, not a hard one. You got it.
I've got almost a 50-50 chance. So
yeah. Two of the 4, and one of them you already know.
Well, one of them you say I already know. So I'm going to go with Paul being one of them.
Correct.
That is a start. So yeah, now I've got like a 1 in 3 chance.
1 in 3 chance.
But then you sit here and you think, okay, so which of the ones would we say has, like, you know, the good artistic flair and such? And, you know, I'm going to go with George. I'm going with George.
Ooh,
so near and yet so far.
You had to think you had to think of the lineup. See, I was thinking that you might picture, especially the 1964 lineup.
Yep.
Ringo is the.
I knew it wasn't John. I knew that much, so because I had a 50-50 shot.
I mean, I'm left-handed. If I was playing it this way, he's playing it this way, right? So it's actually Ringo and Paul. Ringo I didn't find out about till much later, but I guess he had the kit right-handed, but he definitely is a lefty, so he's left-handed. Paul is obviously left-handed. He's playing the bass. He's the left-hander of the group. You see in all the classic photos, whether it's Get Back from 1969 or the 1964 or what, you know, any number of photos you see. George and John, you know, both playing the guitars right-handed. Kind of a symmetry, kind of a balance there. That's been one thing that I've heard discussed, that maybe the part of the appeal was kind of sort of a symmetry with the band. You got 2 right-handed guitars, 1 left-handed.
Then you get to the Yellow Submarine days, and
the infamous Yellow
Symmetry.
Submarine.
What's that?
Oh, believe me, there was a lot of symmetry and then some going on throughout the entire career. Oh man. No, this is, you know what, my friend, this has been a lot of fun. I want to thank you for coming on.
Hey, it's your 100th episode. So
the 100th. Thank you.
100th episode. Got to give it up in the chat. Give the cheers in the chat for 100 episodes, and may there be more than 100 more.
No, I'm looking. I mean, you know, like I said, looking forward to the future. I mean, I've got to get the editing software, the correct one this time. I'm not gonna go into names and all that stuff, but basically the one I had, while it served me well for a while, it was kind of aggravating last Sunday, when it was a couple hours and the sound and the video didn't match up. The more frustrating thing was I had the video done, right? What's even more frustrating from my perspective, when you got the video done and you're looking at it and you're going, man, you know,
it's not quite there yet.
it's everything was there. It was supposed to be. It's like there's no sound. So if there's no sound, unless I'm doing a silent movie of some sort.
I mean, you do have that Buster Keaton aspect to you, but
but you know, all kidding aside, I think that's going to be the future. Love to have you back on, man. This has been a blast. I mean, I know we've known each other for a while, but is there anything? So I guess I'll ask again: is there anything kind of that you have out there, that anything you want to plug for yourself? Do you do any channels? Anything you want folks?
I'm not doing any channels yet. One of the ideas that I have is I want to do, similar to how we spoke today, I want to go into the possibility of doing a channel where I talk about going to conventions and people like myself, people like yourself, who tend to get a little nervous around, other humans, as it were, how to basically not so much combat that, but to accept that that is a part of our personalities and still be able to enjoy the conventions as much as, some neurotypical people would do. It's something that I'm hoping I can you've already seen the skeleton of the idea that I have. I'm just hoping I can put some flesh on the bones, and once I find some actual time to get that going, and I think that would be something I'm looking forward to in the future.
As John Lennon once sang, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans, and that's definitely true.
Truer words never spoken.
Especially in the real life outside of this. I mean, we have our day-to-day lives, of course. I don't do the show full time, as folks know. It just there's so many aspects to all of our personalities and everything. But yeah, you helped to to keep things calm, especially when it's a big group of people. It's like, whoa, that can get a bit much for anybody, whether you're more extroverted or not. I mean, I know folks find it hard to believe, but in real life, I'm quite a bit more introverted than on the channel.
Oh, we become extroverts when we go to cons. You and I will speak to just random people, and yes. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the same way. It's very organic when you go to a con and you're around other people that love the same things you do, whether it's, Doctor Who or DeLoreans or lightsabers or Babylon 5 or whatever you're into. You're going to run into several other people who love it as much as you do, if not more. And to be at that level of comfort, it's not like, growing up as Generation X, there were certain, aspects of that where if you admitted you liked something, sometimes you were a social pariah. Star Trek hadn't been on the TV since the 60s. And Next Gen wasn't a thing until I got to high school. So to admit that I liked Star Trek in those young years would, outside of a Star Trek convention, would be accepted in a very strange way. But with the internet being what it is and social media being what it is, you can find people pretty much all over the world that absolutely love the same things you do. And what better place to express that than going to a con?
Where I know we've still got a little bit more time. I don't want to get it to the
the danger zone.
Well, there you go. Well, I know there's a certain cap on the live chats, but I'll try to wrap it up somewhat quickly with this. But here's the thing with you open up a different good topic, which heck, we could probably do that for another show, another chat at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. But to go on to that topic, because at the time we were going to respective high schools and whatever, not so much college. College I really enjoyed. College people are like, yeah, whatever, do what you want. But high school, especially during the early to mid 90s, right? Mm-hmm. I love how I'd see it on TV. I'm like, yeah, no, it wasn't quite like that on TV. People weren't as
not at all.
You see people open and friendly towards each other and everything with the shows looking back. Yet, no, not quite that way for.
It's a bit more like that song by Rush. Be cool or be cast out.
And the funny thing is, what was in at the time, and I'm not knocking these artists at all. I've heard some of their stuff, more recently and stuff like that. But let's just say people more in the zeitgeist would be like Snoop Dogg. Again, nothing against Snoop Dogg. He seems like a pretty chill fellow, a very green fellow, as it were.
Very green.
Very green indeed.
Super green.
Yeah, exactly. Nirvana, which I did get to see the Unplugged. I've got somewhere in my collection, the Unplugged show, which is a very powerful show. But I think people were gravitating more towards that. It was more popular where, you didn't have the social media, the good side of social media, at least being able to connect with people, connect with your tribe.
Yeah.
That's the fun part of it, despite the other much darker, much more sinister parts. But that's not what we do here. That's not how we roll here. But yeah, you're right. That was definitely one thing. And, now you'll get everybody saying, oh, I love Star Trek. It's like, well, there was the lean years. And I think there's so much content, like Star Wars, like anything. You get so much content out there. And in fact, as we're wrapping this up, I still have yet to see If These Walls Could Sing. That's actually the new documentary that's on Disney Plus. Road. That was just released, I want to say today here in the States.
You've got some homework to do.
I got some homework to do. It's an hour and a half. I'm probably going to actually go pop that in and watch that after our chat. But
there you go.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. You know what? If you want to chat, after this is done or whatever, man, you know what? I say go for it. Do it.
Yeah.
I fully encourage it. Whether it's YouTube, whether it's whatever platform, do it, man. I know you could do it.
Well, I thank you for the vote of confidence, sir.
Hey, that's why we're here, man. Well, listen, sir, it's been good to have you. So to my friends, my dear friend, Mr. Andrew Shanks here, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you as
Um,
well for having me, sir.
Any last words before we wrap up?
Well, another 100 down, several hundred more to go. That's going to be my take on it.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So we'll go ahead and end the live chat. Thanks, folks, to watching this. I'm sure you'll catch this on the replay. So, when you've got stuff to plug, let me know. I'll go ahead and definitely link to it. I'm going to do this again. It's interesting scheduling people, having people, but you know what? I hope everybody's doing good out there. I hope to get another video out within the next week or two. I've got a little learning curve with the new software, but I think the editing software it will translate over. But I just hope everybody's staying safe out there. And you know what? Until next time, thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next episode.
Be good to each other.
Indeed.